Francys Arsentiev, known as the Sleeping Beauty of Mount Everest, is a name that evokes both admiration and sorrow in the mountaineering world. Her story is one of passion, ambition, and the harsh realities of climbing the world's highest peak. This is a detailed account of her final days on Everest, interwoven with testimonies from climbers who encountered her during her desperate struggle for survival. It also includes the tragic fate of her husband, Sergey Arsentiev, who perished while attempting to save her. On a cold morning in mid-May 1998, Francys Arsentiev and her husband Sergey began their ascent from the North Col of Mount Everest. Both experienced climbers, they aimed to summit Everest without supplemental oxygen, a rare and challenging feat. Over the next few days they made steady progress through the treacherous terrain of the North Ridge. By the evening of May 19th they reached Camp 6 at 8,200 meters, their final stop before the summit. The air was dangerously thin, and the cold was relentless. They rested and prepared for the final ascent, aware that the next day would be the most challenging of their lives. May 22, 1998. The day of the summit. Early morning. Francys and Sergey depart from Camp 6, aiming for the summit. The weather is clear but extremely cold. They move slowly, conserving energy for the final push. Late morning. The couple reaches the summit of Everest. Francys becomes the first American woman to summit without oxygen. They celebrate briefly but know they must descend quickly. Afternoon. During the descent, Francys and Sergey become separated. Sergey reaches a lower altitude but Francys is stranded at 8,630 meters. She is exhausted and disoriented, unable to continue. On May 22, 1998, the Uzbek team encounters Francys. Late in the afternoon, a team of climbers from Uzbekistan comes across Sergey at 8,450 meters. He is confused and asks them, "Where is my wife? Didn't she come down?" The Uzbek team continues their ascent, promising to look for Francys. In the evening, they find Francys at 8,630 meters. She is semi-conscious, leaning against a rock and unable to move. They provide her with oxygen and tie her to a fixed rope but decide to continue their climb to the summit, leaving her behind. One of the climbers later described her as looking like a sleeping beauty, pale and serene, leaning against the rock. On May 23, 1998, Sergey made a desperate attempt to save his wife. Early that morning, realizing Francys was in grave danger, he climbed back up to rescue her. Carrying oxygen and medicine, Sergey disappeared during his ascent. His body was found a year later, in 1999, by another expedition. That afternoon, Francys remained stranded at 8,630 meters, exposed to the brutal elements. She was still alive, but barely conscious. Her body was shutting down from the extreme cold and lack of oxygen. May 24, 1998, the final hours. Early morning. A South African team led by Cathy O'Dowd encounters Francys. She is still alive but in critical condition. Her hands are swollen, her skin is milk white from frostbite, and she is unable to move. Cathy and her team try to help, but Francys is too weak to assist in her own rescue. Mid-morning, Francys pleads with the South African team saying, "Don't leave me here. Why are you doing this to me? I am an American." Despite their efforts, the team realizes that rescuing her is impossible without risking their own lives. Late morning. The South African team makes the agonizing decision to leave Francys behind. They continue their climb, but the image of her pleading for help haunts them. Afternoon. Francys succumbs to the elements. She dies alone on the mountain, her body frozen in place, leaning against the rock where she was last seen. The climbers who encountered Francys during her final hours were deeply moved by her situation. Their accounts offer a heartbreaking glimpse into her struggle. The Uzbek climbers described Francys as looking like a sleeping beauty, pale and serene, leaning against a rock. They gave her oxygen but felt she was beyond saving. One climber said, "She was too far gone to help. We had to continue our climb." Cathy O'Dowd's account of the encounter is particularly poignant. She described Francys as a dead weight, unable to move or assist in her own rescue. Cathy said, "It was a hard decision to make, but we couldn't save her. Seeing her in that condition killed my willingness to climb Everest." Ian Woodall, who later helped recover Francys's body, said, "She deserved a proper burial. We couldn't leave her there as a landmark for other climbers. She was a human being, not just a cautionary tale." Francys Arsentiev's body remained on Everest for nearly a decade, becoming a haunting landmark for climbers. In 2007, Cathy O'Dowd and her husband Ian Woodall returned to Everest as part of the Tao of Everest campaign. They recovered Francys's body, wrapped her in an American flag, and gave her a proper burial at a lower altitude. A note from her son, Paul, was left with her. Key takeaways from Francys's story include the perils of high-altitude climbing. Francys's story highlights the extreme dangers of climbing Everest, especially without supplemental oxygen. The death zone above 8,000 meters is unforgiving, and even the most experienced climbers are not immune to its risks. Ethical dilemmas on the mountain. Encounters with Francys raise difficult questions about the ethics of high-altitude rescues. Climbers often face the impossible choice between saving a life and ensuring their own survival. Francys Arsentiev's story serves as a poignant reminder of the human cost of mountaineering. Her determination, courage, and tragic end continue to inspire and caution climbers around the world. Francys Arsentiev, the Sleeping Beauty of Everest, will forever be remembered as a symbol of both the allure and the peril of climbing the world's highest peak. Her story is a testament to the indomitable spirit of adventure and the harsh realities of nature's power.